ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु, सहनौ भुनक्तु, सह वीर्यं करवावहै, तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजानन पद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानाम् एकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वति नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकम् हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹர ஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாவிவ சம்பிருக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தஹே जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं पूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहम्। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन्। हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरनभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കൂപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമിറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പീരേണ്ട തോറും പ്രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so we'll do a quick review of 62 and 63 today. Kritika and Maithili, can you do one each?
Sure, Rajeshi. Can I go 62?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Dasakam 62. Govardhana Bali. Kadachit Kopalan Vikitamaha Sambara Vibhavan Nirikshya Tvam Saure Magava Madamut विध्वंसितुमनाः विजानन्यप्येतान् विनयं मृदुनन्दादिपशुपान् अपृच्छक् को वायं जनकभवदमुद्यम इति पपेशे नन्दस् बभाषे नन्दस्त्वां सुदननु विदयो मघवदो मको वर्षे वर्षे सुखयदि स वर्षेण पृथिवीं नृणां वर्षायत्तं निखिलमुपजीव्यं महितले विशेषादस्मागं दृढसलिलजीव्या हि पशवः इति श्रुत्वा वाचं पितुरयि भवानाः सरसं दिगे नन्दो सत्यं दिगे तन्नो सत्यं मघवजनिता वृष्टिरिति यत् अदृष्टं जीवानां सृजति खलु वृष्टिं समुचितां महारण्ये वृक्षाः किमव बलिमिन्द्राय तते
அந்த word किमीव
बलिमिन्द्राय तददे इदं तावत् सत्यं यदिह पशवो न कुलधनं तदा जीव्यायासौ पलिरचलभर्त्रे समुचितः सुरोभ्योऽप्युत्कृष्टाः ननु धरणि देवाः क्षितितले ततस्तेऽप्यारात्याः इति जगति तत्त्वं निजजनान्.
The third line, first word, Kritika, surebhyo. I think you said surebhyo.
Surebhyo. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Bhavat vacham shrutva bahumadiyutastopi pasupaha Vijendra narchando balimadaruchaihi shitiprite vyaduh pradakshinyam subrusa mannadarayutaha tvamadasailatma balimakilamabhirapuradaha.
The second line, the second line, the middle word, right? Balim ada duruchaihi, the double the coming there. And the
Balim ada duruchaihi.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah.
Avochastaivam tan Kimiha vitatam me nikaditam girindro nashveshaha swapali mupapunkte svapusha ayam gotra vishicha gupite rakshitumalam samasta nityuktaha jagrushrakila gokulajushaha.
Second line, second word, nanveshaha. Second line, second word, nanveshaha. Okay, I think you said something else for that.
Nanveshaha. Okay. Pariprita yadaha kalu bhavadu beda vraja jisho vrajam yavattavan nijamaga vipangam nishamayana bhavandam jananapyadikara jasa granda hridayaho naseho devendraha tvadu parichitat Monadirabi.
And the last line, Kritika. Nasehe.
Okay. Nasehe Devendraha.
The next part is Tvadu Parachitat Monadirabi.
Tvadu Parachitat. அப்படிதான். Chitat mon nadirabi.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Manushyattvam yado madhupitabite Veshva vinayam vidatte chet nashtastrita sadasatam gopi mahimam tadaschatvam shishye pasupahadagasya shriyamiti dravritastvam jetum sakila magavadur madanidhi Tvadavasam handum pralaya jalatanam prabhuvi brahinvan bipranah pulisamaya mapre bagamanah pratastenyaihi andardahana marudatyair vihasito bhavan maya naiva Tripuvanapate mohayadigam surendra krittaschet dvijakarunaya saila kripayabi anadangosmagam niyata iti viswasya pasupan aho kinnayado girapititi sanjinya nivasana marutkehadisha Pranuda Muravairun Mama Katan Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namah.
Very good. And the third line, third word, Giri Bhiditi.
Giri B. Okay. Giri B Tiditi சொல்லக்கூடாது. Okay.
Giri Bhiditi. I think
okay.
You said Giri Bidhati. You said Giri Bidhiti.
Okay. Giri Bidhiti. Thank you.
Yeah.
Dasakam 63. Govardhanodharana Varnanam. Dadrishirekila takshanamakshyata stanita jrumbita kampita dikkataha sushamaya bhavadanga gataha prajapado parivaridharastvaya विपुलकैः तोयदारानिपातैः दिशि दिशि पशुपाणां मण्डले दण्ड्यमाने कुपितहरिकृतानः पाहि पाहीति तेषां वचनमजित शृण्वन् मा बिभीतेत्य भाणीः कुल इह खलु गोत्रो दैवतं गोत्रशत्रोः विहतिमिह स रुन्ध्यात् को नु वः संशयोऽस्मिन् इति सहसितवादाति देवगोवर्धनाद्रिं त्वरितमुदमुमूलो मूलतो बालदोभ्याम्.
That's the first line, right? We said the first line and the second line together. So there is no gotra shatroho. It becomes a ir if you don't have it. You add a ir. So it becomes daivatam gotra shatror bihatimiha. It goes together, okay?
Okay, so you don't have to say gotra shatroho and then bihat.
Yeah, because we are saying the second line along with the first line, so that ir remains, okay?
So I'll just put a plus there and take out the aha.
Yeah.
Tadanu girivarasya prodhritasya tavat sikhati la mrududveshe durato varitape parikara parimishran dhenu gopan atastat upani dadatha hastapadmena shailam.
On the fourth line, first word. Upanidhadat adatta.
Upanidadat adattha hastapadmena shailam bhavati vidrita shaile balikabhir vayasyaihi api vihita vilasam kelila padilole सविधमिलितधेनुरेकहस्तेन कण्डु यति सति पशुपालास्तोष मेषन्तसे सर्वे
The fourth line after yati sati, there is a comma. Okay.
यति सति पशुपालास्तोष मेषन्त सर्वे अतिमहान् गिरिशेष तु वामके करसरोरुहितं धरते चिरं किमिदमद्मुथ मद्रिबलं बलन्विति त्वदवलोकिभिराकति गोपकैः अहहद्राष्ट्य ममुष्य वटोर्गिरं व्यतितबाहुरसावरोपयेत् इति हरिस्त्वयि गर्हणो दिवस सप्तकमुग्रमवर्षयत्
That first line, last word, girim. I think we said giram. It's girim.
First line last.
Vator girim.
Vator
girim.
Yes.
Girim.
Okay. Vator girim. Yes, of course. Achalati tvai deva padatpadam galita sarvajale cha ganotkare aphrite marutam patihi त्वदभिशाङ्खि तद्धि समुपाद्रवत् शममुपेयुषि वर्षभरे तदा पशुपदे नुकुले च विनिर्गते भुवि विभो समुपाहित भूधरः प्रमुदितैः पशुपैः परिरेभिषे धरणिमेव पुरा धृतवानसि क्षितिधरोद्धरणे तव कः श्रमः इति न तुश्रिदशैः कमलापते गुरुपुरालय पालय मां गदात्. श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
The third line, second word, iti nutas tridashaih kamalapate. That word.
इति नुतस्त्रिदशैः कमलापते गुरुपुरालय पालय मां गदात्. श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः. Thank you.
Okay, we'll continue with 64. So today, first half, Ritiji, you can be a student, and Gayatri, you can be a student, first half. So I think we did the first two stanzas of 64, right? And I don't know if I said the meaning, but I'll kind of start with that. Start with stanza 3. ततो वमानोदित तत्त्वबोधः सुरादिराजः सह दिव्यगव्या उपेत्य तुष्टावसनष्टगर्वः स्पृष्ट्वा पदाब्जं मणिमौलिनाथे. So we saw in the previous, we saw the Govardhanodharana Varnam, like Krishna lifting the Govardhana mountain. And we saw how then all of them were rescued. So the Braja people now have gone back because the rains have stopped. So when they saw Krishna lifting this Govardhana mountain, right, we saw last time how they said maybe, the mountain lifted itself. Because how is it possible for like a 7-year-old boy to lift it with a single hand, the two with a single finger? So they said it was not possible. However, when the Gopas went back and they started talking about it, they said this is not the first time such thing is happening. Right when he was a baby, Putana came, somehow nothing happened to him. Then Sakatasura came, then Trinavarta came, all of these things, right? Then we saw, Nalakubara, the Manigriva, trees getting broken, then the kids were talking about the Aghasura episode. So all of these things are happening. There should be something going on. This boy cannot be an ordinary boy. So they would go and ask Nandagopa, saying, what is it that you're hiding from us, right? Tell us the truth about this boy. So at the time, in second stanza, Nandagopa says, he reveals to them finally what Garga Muni told Nandagopa in Dasakam 44 during Krishna's Namakaranam. Where he said that the son who is born to you, it's not the first time he has taken birth. He has taken multiple incarnations. Anytime there is a problem, he has taken birth to help everybody out. So when he compared him to Narayana, short of saying he's Narayana himself, because he didn't want to quite reveal it's a full avataram. He said, short of saying that, he said he has all the qualities of that of Narayana, and he has all these powers, and he's going to be protecting all of you Vraj people, right? That is the purpose of his birth, and so he kind of gives his history there. So then, because once they come to know about it, that he's almost like God, he's a God's blessing or a prodigy, then everybody started loving Krishna even more. They already had a lot of affection for Krishna. Now they had even more affection for Krishna, and they started looking at him with a different perspective, saying, he indeed is great. He indeed has all these powers. Maybe it was he who actually did all these things, where we kind of doubted a lot of the scenarios. Maybe he indeed did it, right? And so they now begin to looking at Krishna in a much more different way. Anyway, so that's what happened. Now let's go back to Indra. So after the Indra's, after the sacrifice was broken, after this happened for 7 days, Indra finally came to a realization, saying that, I committed a big mistake, right? Because out of pride, out of haste, I did all this. And now he was worried, because it's like he upset the super boss, right? So he has to figure out, like, what can I do right now? So he then goes to Balarama first. And then he goes to Balarama and said, Balarama, I committed a big mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I ended up testing Krishna's power. So Balarama says, there's absolutely no problem. You go directly to Krishna and then, surrender, right? That's the best one. Do a Sharanagati. There's no other option here. So at the time, then Indra, that's what even Brahma also recommends to Indra. So Indra then goes privately, he goes and meets Krishna in Vrindavan one day, and he brings Surabhi, which is the heavenly cow also. And then he goes and completely, surrenders to Krishna and says that I made a big mistake. It is because of my pride that I got carried away when my sacrifice was kind of stopped, right? At that point, I didn't know what to do, and I wanted to teach the people of Vraja a lesson, not you. But however, it was like you were stopping them, right? You were protecting them. So I ended up kind of testing you as well. So Indra completely, apologized, because he realized what he had done. At the time, Krishna then, and he does a small stuti and all that stuff. Then, Krishna then tells Indra, just see, it is out of my mercy that I decided to cut anything to you. So, and this is what Krishna is going to tell Uddhava later on in Uddhava Gita also, saying that when I'm taking something from you, you should think of it as a blessing. It might feel really bad for you that I'm taking something off you, but I'm taking something off for a specific reason, for a specific purpose that you don't understand. He says, Indra, your pride had gone up so much that you had stopped thinking about me, stopped worshipping me. So I had to take this out of you to kind of bring you, because I know genuinely, because it's Indra at the end of the day. He is a demigod, right? He has his purpose. You cannot say that Indra is bad, but like everybody else, we get carried away. So that's an example. Krishna is telling Indra that you got carried away. So I had to do this to bring you back to realization of thinking about me all the time. So it was purely for removing this pride of you that I did this. Now that you understand it, absolutely no issues, right? Indra is forgiven. You please go back and continue doing things the right way. So that is what Krishna then tells Indra there. So coming to stanza 3, Tatova one word, Avamanodita, but it will come together. Tatova manodita Tatva Bodhaha, comma, Suradi Rajaha, put is Suradi Rajas Saha Divya Gavya, Upetya Tushtava Sa Nashta Garvaha, comma, Sprishtva Padabjam Mani Maulinate. ततोऽवमानोदिततत्त्वबोधः सुराधिराजः सह दिव्यगव्या उपेत्य तुष्टावसनष्टगर्वः स्पृष्ट्वा पदाब्जं मणिमौलिना ते.
ततो वमानोदिततत्त्वबोधः सुराधिराजः सह दिव्यगव्या उपेत्य तुष्टावसनष्टगर्वः स्पृष्ट्वा पदाब्जं मणिमौलिना ते. ततो वमानोदिततत्त्वबोधः सुराधिराजः सह दिव्यगव्या उपेत्य तुष्टावसनष्टगर्वः स्पृष्ट्वा पदाब्जं मणिमौलिना ते.
ततो वमानोदिततत्त्वबोधः सुराधिराजः सह दिव्यगव्याम् उपेत्य दुष्टावसनष्टगर्वः स्पृष्ट्वा पदाब्जं मणिमौलिना ते. ततो वमानोदिततत्त्वबोधः सगदिव्यगव्याम् उपेत्य तुष्टावसनष्टगर्वः स्पृष्ट्वा पदाब्जं मणिमौलिना ते
Transform. स्नेहस्नुतैस्त्वां सुरभिः पयोभिः गोविन्दनामाङ्कितमभ्यषिञ्चत् ऐरावतोपाहृतदिव्यगङ्गापातोभिरिन्द्रोऽपि च जातहर्षः. So let's say 4 and 5 meaning together. Sneha snutais tvam surabhihi, put a F to join, surabhih, payobihi, put a visarga and comma, payobihi. Next, on top of the Govinda, there is a ir that will go away. Govinda namankitam abhyashinchate, if you want to break it. Airavatopahrita divya ganga, put a plus. Patobhir indropi cha jata harshaha. स्नेहस्नुतैस्त्वां सुरभिः पयोभिः गोविन्दनामाङ्कितमभ्यषिञ्चत् ऐरावतोपाहृतदिव्यगङ्गापातोभिरिन्द्रोऽपि च जातहर्षः.
स्नेहस्नुतैस्त्वां सुरभिः पयोभिः गोविन्दनामाङ्गितमभ्यषिञ्चत ऐरावतोपाहृतदिव्यगङ्गापाथोभिरिन्द्रोऽपि च जातहर्षः. स्नेहस्नुतैस्त्वां सुरभिः पयोभिः गोविन्दनामाङ्गितमभ्यषिञ्चत ऐरावतोपाहृतदिव्यगङ्गा पाथोभिरिन्द्रोऽपि च जातहर्षुः.
जातहर्षः.
जातहर्षः.
स्नेकैस्नुतैस्त्वां सुरभिः वयोभिः नामाङ्कितमभ्यषिञ्चत् ऐरावतो बाहृति दिव्यगङ्गा पादोभिरिन्दरोऽपि च जातहर्षः. स्नेहैनुतैस्त्वां सुरभिः वयोभिः गोविन्दनामाङ्कितमभ्यषिञ्चत् ऐरावतोपाहृति हृत दिव्यगङ्गा पादोभिरिन्द्रोऽपि च जातहर्षः.
That's okay. जगत्रहेशे त्वयि गोकुलेशे तथाभिषिक्ते सति गोपवाटः नाकेऽपि वैकुण्ठपतेभ्य लभ्यां श्रियं प्रपेदे भवतः प्रभावात्. So first, like we said, Surabhi, which is the Kamadhenu, the cow. So that came along with Indra, and then it did an Abhishekam to Krishna, because now what they're doing is they're going to do a Patta Abhishekam of Krishna here. So, and this was also recommended by Brahma. So Brahma and all the demigods, everybody assemble there, and first they do a milk Abhishekam of Krishna directly from Surabhi, and then Airavata, which is the white elephant of Indra, brings the celestial Ganges, not the Ganges that is flowing in earth. There is another Ganges that flows in the other worlds, in the heavenly world. So from there they bring that Ganges water, and then they do an Abhishekam, and then they give you the name Govinda. That name is given to you. So if you break up what this meaning of the word Govinda is, it's got a couple of meanings. One, of course, is very simple. Go means cows, and Indra means the one who is able to govern, or one who is able to protect or take care. So Govinda means the one who is a protector, or the one who takes care of cows. That's one meaning of it. Go also has two other meanings. One, it means Vedas, and the third, it means senses. S-E-N-S-E-S, senses. So the Govinda could also mean one who is the protector or the ruler of the Vedas. That's one meaning, second meaning there. And the third meaning is the one who has control over his senses, right? So that is the third meaning of Govinda. Anyway, so they then give you the name, Govinda, because you are all three. You are, of course, the ruler of the Vedas. You have control over your senses, and of course you are a protector of the cows. There's no doubt about that in this Krishna avataram. That's Krishna is the cow herd anyways. So with this, they give you that name. And of course, once you are there, Krishna, and all these demigods, Indra, everybody is coming there and worshipping you in Vrindavan, there's no doubt that Vrindavan attains immense prosperity. And it says being in Vrindavan is as good as being in Vaikuntham, because all these demigods, instead of going to Vaikuntham, they're coming to Vrindavan to come and see you. So they say there's no difference between Vrindavan and Vaikuntham, because that's where you are there and everybody comes to see you there. So Jagat Trayeshe Tvai Gokuleshe, Tathabhishikte Sati Gopavataha Nakepi Vaikuntha Padepya Labhyam, Shriyam Prapede Bhavataha, put a F to join, Bhavatah Prabhavat. Jagatraheshe Tvai Gokuleshe Tathabhishikte Sati Gopavataha Nakepi Vaikuntha Padebhya Labhyam Shriyam Prapede Bhavatah Prabhavat.
Jagatrayeshe Toi Gokuleshe Tatapishikte Sati Gopavataha Nakepi Vaikuntha Padepya Labhyam Sriyam Prapede Bhavatah Prabhavat. Jagatrayeshe Toi Gokuleshe Tatapishikte Sati Gopavataha Nakepi Vaikuntha Padepya Labhyam Sriyam Prapede Bhavatah Prabhavat.
जगत्त्रयेशे त्वयि गोकुलेशे तथाभिषिक्ते सति को भवाडः नाकेऽपि वैकुण्ठपदेभ्य लभ्यां श्रियं प्रपेदे भवतः प्रभावात् जगत्त्रयेशे त्वयि गोकुलेशे तथाभिषिक्ते सति को भवाडः नाकेऽपि वैकुण्ठपदेभ्य लभ्यां Shriyam prabede bhavata prabhavat.
That's a 6. Kadachidantar yamunam prabhate snayan pita varuna purushena nitastamane tu magah purim tvam tam varunim karanamartya rupaha. That brings an end to the Govardhana episode, right? And crowning of Krishna as Govinda. So now completely new story is starting in this. So one day, Krishna's father Nandagopa, he was observing the Ekadashi fasting. So it was Dwadashi in the morning, and it was getting over very early morning of Dwadashi. So he wanted to break his fast. So for him to break his fast, he wanted to go take a bath in the Yamuna river. So there are certain rules. It says that, you cannot, like we saw when the Gopikas went in, is you cannot go completely naked. That is one of the rules. The second is, it says there are certain times in the Brahma Muhurtam where you cannot get into the water. You have to wait till a particular point. I don't know what exactly the time is. But anyways, so when Nandagopa then ended up stepping in even earlier, before the first dawn light was coming, so because he got in at that time, it says that one of the emissaries of Varuna, right, who is the lord of the oceans, lord of the water, he ends up taking Nandagopa. I don't know if he ends up taking or Nandagopa got submerged, one of that, right? So Nandagopa essentially disappears. So when this happens, everybody, of course, they come running to Krishna, right, and saying, Krishna, you have to really help us out here. So Krishna, you then go to the abode of Varuna, right, to go and meet Varuna there. So in this already we saw Brahma's encounter which happened in 52. 64 is encounter with Indra, 63, etc. And 64 also is the encounter with Varuna. So you then go to Varuna's abode to go bring your father back. So Kadachit Antar Yamunam Prabhate, Snayan Pita Varuna Purushena Nitas Tamanetu Magaha. Cannot quite break it. Tamanetum Agaha. You can break it maybe at that ma. So and instead of the Visarga, put a F. Tamanetu Magaf Purim Tvam, Tam Varunin Karana Martya Rupaha. Kadachidantar Yamunam Prabhate Snayan Pita Varuna Purushena Nitastamanetu Magaf Purim Tvam Tam Varunim Karana Martya Rupaha.
Kadachidantar Yamunam Prabhate Snayan Pita Varuna Purushena Nitastamane tu Magaf Purim Tvam Tam Varunim Karanamartya Rupaha. कदाचिदन्तर्यमुनं प्रभाते स्नायन् पिता वारुणपूरुषेण नीतस्तमाने तु मगाः पुरीं त्वं तां वारुणीं कारणमर्त्यरूपः
कदाचिदन्तर्यमुनं प्रभाते स्नायन् पिता वारुणपूरुषेण नीतस्तमानेतु पुरीं त्वं तां वारुणीं कारणमद्यरूपः यमुनं प्रभाते स्नायन् पिता वारुणपूरुषेण नीतस्तमानेतु महापुरीं त्वं तां वारुणीं कारणमर्ध्यरूपः.
Answer 7. ससम्भ्रमं तेन जलाधिपेन प्रपूजितस्त्वं प्रतिगृह्यतातम् उपागतस्तत्क्षणमात्मगेहं पिता वदत्तच्चरितं निजेभ्यः. But Varuna, unlike Indra, he realizes what. So when Krishna himself has come there, then Varuna is like really surprising. How did Krishna himself come here, right? So he welcomes Krishna and then he says, you know what? My emissaries, my servants who went there, picked up, they didn't realize it is your father, and then they got Nandagopa by mistake. So please completely accept our apologies. And then, they sent Nandagopa and Krishna back. So Nandagopa, when he sees the opulence of Varuna that is there, and then he says, now this Varuna is offering respects to Krishna. So already they thought Krishna is almost like a god. So now when he says that such a big person is offering, namaskarams to Krishna, then he's really beginning to doubt, who is this Krishna? Even Nandagopa is beginning to question, is it actually God who has taken birth here? And then Nandagopa comes, and then he comes and shares this news with all of the people of Braja as well. So, sasambhramam tena jaladipena, prapujitastvam pratigrihyatatam upagatas takshanam atmageham, pitavadattach, so each sound, double th and each, pitavadattach charitam nijebhyah. Sasambhramam tena jaladipena प्रपूजितस्त्वं प्रतिगृह्यतातम् उपागतस्तत्क्षणमात्मगेहं पिता वदत्तच्चरितं निजेभ्यः.
ससम्भ्रमं तेन जलाधिपेन प्रपूजितस्त्वं प्रतिगृह्यतातम् उपागतस्तत्क्षणमात्मगेहं पिता वदत्तच्चरितं निजेभ्यः. ससम्भ्रमं तेन जलाधिपेन प्रपूजितस्त्वं प्रतिगृह्यतातम् उपागतस्तत्क्षणमात्मगेहं पिता वदत्तच्चरितं निजेभ्यः.
ससम्भ्रमं तेन जलाधिपेन प्रपूजितस्त्वं प्रतिगृह्यतातम् उपागतस्तत्क्षणमात्मगेहं पिता वदत्तच्चरितं निजेभ्यः. ससम्भ्रमं तेन जलाधिपेन प्रपूजितस्त्वं प्रतिगृह्यतातम् उपागतस्तत्क्षणमात्मगेहं पिता वदत्तच्चरितं निजेभ्यः.
8 and 9, I'll say meaning together. Harim vinishchitya bhavantametan, bhavat padalokana baddha trishnan nirikshya vishno paramam padam tad, durapam anyais tvamadi drishastan. I'll say that word again. Durapam anyais tvamadi drishastan. Harim vinishchitya bhavantametan bhavatpadalokana baddha drishnan nirikshya vishno paramam padam tat durapamanyais tvamadi drishastan.
हरिं विनिश्चित्य भवन्तमेतान् भवत्पदालोकनबद्धतृष्णान् निरीक्ष्य विष्णो परमं पदं तद दुरापमन्यस्त्वमदीदृशस्तान्. हरिं विनिश्चित्य भवन्तमेतान् भवत्पदालोकनबद्धतृष्णान् निरीक्ष्य विष्णो परमं पदं तद दुरापमन्यस्त्वमदीदृशस्तान्.
I have a quick question, Rajesh ji. Is it padam tad or tat?
See that because the da is coming later, durapamanya is right.
Yeah,
That becomes tad there, id there.
Id, and then it's durapam, right?
Yeah, correct, correct.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
that it or id. So first ta, it or id. It always
Okay.
depends on what is the letter coming after that. So
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
हरिं विनिश्चित्य भवन्तमेतान् भवत्पदालोकनपददृशान्
Bhaddha
ओके पद्दृष्णान् निरीक्ष्य विष्णो परमं पदं तत् दुराभमन्यैस्त्वमिति दृशस्तान् हरिं विनिश्चित्य भवन्तमेतान् भवत्पदालोकनबद्धतृष्णान् निरीक्ष्य विष्णो परमं पदं तत् दुराभमन्यैस्त्वमदीदृशस्तान्.
Tansanai. स्फुरत्परानन्दरसप्रवाह प्रपूर्णकैवल्यमहापयोधौ चिरं निमग्नाः खलु गोपसङ्गाः त्वयैव भूमन् पुनरुद्धृतास्ते. So when Nandagopa said this to the Gopas, so they said, you know what, Harim Vinishchiti. I think it is definite that this is Hari himself. There is no doubt, right? That's what all the Gopas started thinking. There's no doubt. This is no other person can have so much power. And so they were very particular about, understanding what is the state of supreme bliss. How will it be, right? What will the final state look like? So that's what they were all thinking. So Krishna also thought to himself, saying, you know what? Everybody in this world, they all are getting born in these various worlds because of whatever karma they are doing, because they don't realize what the end state should be. The end state, which is the final merging with Paramatma, the state of supreme bliss. People don't realize what it feels like because you don't know what it feels like if nobody's wanting to go there. So they all kind of commit different things. You do a lot of good things, you go to heavenly worlds, you do bad things, you come down to other worlds. So they are all being born in all these things because they just don't know what their destination is. So Krishna says, all these gopas are anyway realized beings to some extent. He says, I want to show them what the end state looks like. So that paramam padam, that is your state of Vaikuntham, you then show them what Vaikuntham is like. And then you immerse them in the state of bliss. So when you are in the state, when you are in Vaikuntham, like we've seen before, there is no sorrow, no anger, no lobo, no desire, nothing. You are always in a state of complete bliss, satisfied with yourself, right? So Krishna then gets them to experience that state, right? So when they are in that state, so that they know that is what they need to aim for, because once you experience it, then you will want to go there. So very briefly, Krishna, you show them or make them experience that state, right? And then you immediately bring them back to reality. So for them, it sounds like it just goes off in a flash, but at least they experience it very briefly, and then everything just goes away and they're back to normal, right? So at least you show them, that way they at least have some remembrance of it, and then they'll eventually want to attain that, because that's where they're all eventually going to go anyway. So Spurat Parananda Rasa Pravaha, put a plus, Prapurna Kaivalya Mahapayodhau Chiram Nimagnaha, put a ich to join, Nimagnah Khalu Gopa Sanghaha. So that is, put a visarga comma, Gopa Sanghaha Tvayaiva Bhuman Punarudhritaste. Spuratmaranandarasa Prapurna Kaivalya Mahapayodhau Chiram Nimagnah Khalu Gopa Sanghaha Tvayaiva Bhuman Punarudhritaste.
स्फुरत्परानन्दरसप्रवाह प्रपूर्णकैवल्यमहापयोधौ चिरं निमग्नाः खलु गोपसङ्घाः त्वयैव भूमन् पुनरुद्धृतास्ते. स्फुरत्परानन्दरसप्रवाह प्रपूर्णकैवल्यमहापयोधौ चिरं निमग्नाः खलु गोपसङ्खाः त्वयैव भूमन् पुनरुद्धृतास्ते
स्फुरत्परानन्दरसप्रवाह प्रपूर्णकैवल्यमहापयोधौ चिरं निमग्ना खलु क्षोभसङ्गाः त्वयैव भूमन् पुनरुद्धृतास्ते स्फुरत्परानन्दरसप्रवाह प्रपूर्णकैवल्यमहाभयोधौ चिरं निमग्ना खलु क्षोभसङ्गाः त्वयैव भूमन् पुनरुद्धृतास्ते.
That's a 10. करभदरवधेवं देवकुत्रावतारे निजपदमनवाप्यं दर्शितं भक्तिभाजां तदिह पशुपरूपी त्वं हि साक्षात् परात्मा पवनपुरनिवासिन् पाहि मामामयेभ्यः. So Bhaktipad is asking, saying here, in which avataram of yours, amongst all the avatarams, multiple avatarams, right? Not just 10 like we discussed, amongst all the avatarams, in which avataram have you shown the supreme state, your Vaikuntham, and the ability for somebody to experience it, ability for somebody to see it so clearly as you have done in Krishna Avatar? There is no other avataram have people been able to experience that state of bliss so easily. And he says it is so clear. Example is given, if you look at your palm is always a lighter shade in your skin. So if you keep your palm, which is a lighter color, and then you keep a black berry on the center of the palm, it is very clearly visible because that is a dark, it's black in color. Your palm is very light in color. So you keep it in your palm, it's very clearly visible. That's what he says, Kara Bhada Rava Devam. Like keeping a berry on one's palm, it is so easily visible. That clearly you have experienced, shown people or got them to experience what that supreme state looks like only in Krishna Avataram. There's absolutely no doubt. And he says, you who is this Sakshat Paramatma, just Paratma means the same thing. You who is the supreme self, who has come in the form of a Pashupa Rupi, who has come in the form of a cowherd, please eradicate all of my ailments as well. This Dashakam comes to an end. Karabhadara Vadevam Deva Kutravatare, Nija Padam Anavapyam Darshitam Bhakti Bhajam Tadiha Pashupa Rupi Tvam hi Sakshat Paratma, Pavana Pura Nivasin Pahi Mama Mayebhyaha. Sorry.
Sorry, Rajesh.
Go ahead.
Is it Deva Kutrava? Is it Kutrava?
Kutravatare. It's Kutra Avatare becomes Kutravatare.
Okay, thank you.
Karabhadaravanhevam Devakutravatare Nijapadamanavápyam Darshitam Bhakti Bhajam Tadiha Pashuparupi Tvam hi Sakshat Paratma Pavanapura Nivasin Pahi Mama Mayebhyaha.
Rajeshji,
Yeah.
in our Tamil version, in the first line, after Kutravatare, it says Parapada Manapyam. Manapyam. Parapada, it says. Is it Nijapada?
Oh, yeah,
Not
okay, yeah.
Parapada.
Yeah, just change it to Nija Padam. It means the same thing. Para is like great, it's, like a superlative kind of thing, right? And that's the same thing. So it means the same. So just change it to Nija Padam Anavapyam.
Thank you.
Karabhadarava Devakutravatare Nijapadamanavápyam Darsitam Bhaktibhajam Tadiha Pasiparupi Tvam hi Sakshat Paratma Pavanapuravasin Pahi Mama Mayebhyaha.
Pavanapura Nivasin. Last line.
Karabhadarava Devakutravatare Nijapadamanavápyam Darsitam Bhaktibhajam Tadiha Pasiparupi Tvam hi Sakshat Paratma Pavanapura Nivasin Pahi Mama Mayebhyaha.
Karapada Rava देवं देवकुत्रावधारे निजपदमनवाभ्यां दर्शितं भक्तिपाजां तदिह पशुपरूपी त्वं हि साक्षात् परात्मा पवनपुरनिवासिन् पाहि मामयेभ्यः करपदरवदेवं देवकुत्रावधारे निजपदमनवाभ्यां दर्शितं भक्तिपाजां तदिह पशुपरूपी त्वं हि साक्षात् परात्मा पवनपुरनिवासिन् पाहि मामयेभ्यः.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. Okay, so we'll switch to others. I think Mridulaji, you can be a student, and Ravi, you can be a student. Okay, so we'll go to 65. So before we get into 65, what I'll do in 65 is I'm going to kind of tell the entire story of 65 upfront of what is happening, because it's easy to do it that way. That way this particular one will flow together. So from 65 to 69, right, is called as the Rasa Panchadhyayi. Pancha Adhyayi means 5 dashakams, 5 chapters. So this 5 chapters is what is describing the Rasa Krida, right? And it will eventually culminate with the actual Rasa Krida dance only in 69, but it starts at 65 and eventually kind of goes there. And before we get into 65 itself, or 66, 67, 68, 69, etc., there is a little bit of a prologue I have to kind of do here, right? Because as we get into this Rasa Krida conversation, right, it's a dance that Krishna is going to do with the Gopikas. So a natural question which is going to come in the mind of people is, how is Krishna dancing with so many women who are in love with Krishna? Right? That's a natural question. There's nothing wrong in thinking about it or asking about it, because not only humans, when Shuka Brahman was telling Parikshit about this, Parikshit looked around, and Parikshit is a realized personality already. He looked around, and when he was hearing the stories of the love that the Gopikas had for Krishna, who is, by the way, 8 years old at this point, he felt that there were others in the audience who might actually ask the question. So he himself asks Parikshit, how can Krishna, who is the Supreme Lord, go and spend time with so many women, dancing with them, right? Who are married, some of them who are married, some of them who are unmarried, all ages, right? So how can Krishna do this? Can you please explain? So at that time, Shuka Brahman, Parikshit also says that, the gopis, they did not know Krishna as the Supreme Lord. They did not think of him as a Supreme Lord. They only thought of him as somebody who they loved. He says, how can they, that is the second question. People, to get liberated, you have to be free from material attachments. But these gopis are getting more and more digging themselves into material attachments by loving somebody. So how can they get liberation when they are getting so much deep into material attachments? So those are the two questions that Parikshit asks, which is what everybody will have a feeling here. So Shuka Brahma first gives a little bit of explanation of why that is. So he says, in anybody who explains Rasa Krida, they have to always give that context of the spiritual purity of the relationship that exists between Gopikas and Krishna, right? He says, that's why you need to understand that these Gopikas who are born are already spiritually enlightened beings who Krishna brought along with them, because they had all the knowledge required for liberation. They were demigods, they were all liberated beings, but their request was, while we understand you as a Supreme Lord, we want to feel that experience of love, what it is to love you, irrespective of whether you are God or not. That was a request all of these beings had. So all of them came. So they were already realized beings, and they were given this opportunity to experience pure love with anybody, Krishna being in this case, right? So that is number one, right? And two, the what do you call Krishna himself, who is the Supreme Lord, we have to realize that he's beyond all of these material things, right? He's lifting Govardhana with the tip of his finger, very simply said, right? He cannot be bound by love or material desires or any of that stuff, right? By as a Bhagavan, he's fully satisfied with himself, free from all of these things. And he's a Govinda, right? We just discussed last time. He has control over his senses. So he's not going to get bound by love or lust or greed or any of those senses. So you cannot look at any of these things with that context, right? Number one, Krishna is not like that. And two, the Gopikas were born primarily to experience that love with it. So he says that is number two. And the third thing Shukla says is when Krishna is born, in the avataram of Krishna avataram happens, and we'll see there is no restriction of what your relationship with Krishna needs to be. There's absolutely no restriction. You can be like Putana who came to kill Krishna. You can be like Trinavarta who came to take Krishna away and kill him. You can be like Aghasura who wants to swallow Krishna, not only swallow Krishna, swallow his friends as well. Right? You can be like Kamsa, who we are going to see later, who had sleepless nights because he was afraid of Krishna. You can be like Kuchela, who is the closest friend of Krishna, or you can be like Gopika, some of who had motherly love towards Krishna, some of them who had conjugal love towards Krishna, some of them who wanted to marry Krishna, no different than Andal who wanted to marry Krishna either. Right? He says there's absolutely no restriction for any devotee how you want to be related to Krishna. So if some Gopikas want to marry Krishna and some Gopikas are in love with Krishna, why will Krishna stop it? There's absolutely no restriction. You can love Krishna however you want, or you can hate Krishna however you want as well. As long as you're constantly thinking about Krishna, that is the requirement here, right? That is what Shukla Brahman also says, is that this has to be always looked at it in perspective, because as we start going through these things, we will lose the broader perspective of what this is, right? So that's why it's important to kind of take a step back and understand that perspective. And even Narada also, says in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narada, to explain the second question that Parikshit asks of how somebody who is trying to get away from material attachments, if they get more closer to Krishna materially, how is it possible? So Narada gives an example. He says, let's say somebody actually has like a lactose, he says some kind of a intolerance, some deficiency, something is there. He says the milk which is causing the disorder in your bowels, sometimes the cure for that is a type of curd mixed with some medicine, which also comes from milk. Just like how we say remove a nail with a nail or a thorn with a thorn, right? So you kind of say sometimes when you think of it that way, the one which puts you into it could also bring you out. So getting more materially attached with Krishna is actually going to get you away from all material things. So don't think of that material attachment with Krishna similar to your material attachments to other things like house and family and wealth and all of that stuff. He says that is completely different. The more you get materially attached to Krishna, the more you're going to feel free from all material desires. So he says there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting materially attached. That's why in Bhattadi Part 1 of Dasakam, he says the Gopikas are so lucky because they are materially attached to, because that's a natural inclination, right? We can easily get ourselves attached to certain things. But he says that puts you into bondage. However, material attachment to Krishna is going to give you liberation. This is absolutely nothing wrong with material attachment to Krishna. Right? So that is some of the context that actually happens before we get into this Dashakam itself, right? Maybe we'll do like 5 stanzas and then I'll say the rest of the Dashakam's meaning. I mean, we haven't gone into the meaning of the Dashakam yet, but stanza 1.
Rajesh, before you start,
yeah,
can you please skip the official title for 64?
Sure. Yeah.
64 and 65.
Yeah, 64 was Govinda Pattabhisheka Varnanam. Govinda Pattabhisheka Varnanam, 64. 65 is Gopi Samagamana Varnanam, which means the Gopikas coming to Krishna.
Thank you.
Okay, just give me 1 sec. The son was just frantically texting me about something. Okay. Stanza 1. Gopi Janaya Katitam Niyamavasane Marotsavam Tomata Sadhayitum Pravrittah Sandrena Chandra Mahasa Shishiri Kritashe Prapurayo Muralikam Yamuna Vanante. So Gopi Janaya Katitam Niyamavasane, Marotsavam Tomata Sadhayitum Pravrittah Sandrena Chandra Mahasa Shishiri Kritashe, प्रापूरयो मुरलिकां यमुना वनान्ते गोपी जनाय कथितं नियमावसाने मारोत्सवं त्वमत साधयितुं प्रवृत्तः सान्द्रेण चान्द्रमहसा शिशिरीकृताशे प्रापूरयो मुरलिकां यमुना वनान्ते.
Someone had a question, so I'm going to let them ask.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, sir. I wanted you to repeat the title again for 65.
Sure, sure. Gopi, long E, Samagamana Varnanam. Samagamana is like coming to Krishna. Description of gopis coming to Krishna.
Thank you, sir.
Gopi janaya katitam niyamavasane marolsavam tvamada sadhayidum pravrittah sandrena chandramahasa shishirikritashe prapurayo muralikam yamuna vanande. Gopi janaya kathitam niyamavasane marolsavam tvamata साथयितुं प्रवृत्तः सान्द्रेण चान्द्रमहसा शिशिरीकृताशे प्रापूरयो मुरलिकां यमुना वनान्दे.
गोपी जनाय कथितं नियमावसाने मारोत्सवं त्वमद साधयितुं प्रवृद्धः सान्द्रेण सान्द्रमहसा शिशिरीकृताशे प्रापूरयो मुरलिकां यमुना वनान्ते गोपी जनाय कथितं नियमावसाने मारोत्सवं त्वमद साधयितुं प्रवृद्धः सान्द्रेण चान्द्रमहसा शिशिरीकृताशे प्रापूरयो मुरलिकां यमुना वनान्ते.
सम्मूर्छ नाभिरुदित स्वर मण्डलाभिः सम्मूर्छयन्तं akhilam. If you want to break it that ma, sammurchayantam akhilam bhuvanantaralam tvad venu nadam upakarnya vibho tarunyah. Put a visarga comma there. Next line is goes away. Tattadrisham kamapi chitta vimohamapuhu. Samhurchanavirudita swaramandalabihi samhurchayantamakhilam bhuvanantaralam tvadvenunadamupakarnya vibhotarunyah tattadrisham kamapi chitta vimohamapuhu.
Sammurchanabhiruditaswaramandalabihi sammurchayandamakhilam bhuvanandaralam tadvenunadamupakarnya vibhotarunyah tattadrisham kamabhichitta vimoha mapuhu.
Third line, first word, twadvenu.
Twadvenu.
Yeah, correct. You said tad, it's tvad. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sammurchanabhi nabhirudita swaramandalabihi sammurchayandamakhilam bhuvanandaralam tadvenunadamupakarnya vibho tarunyah tattadrisham kamabi chitta vimohamapuhu.
Same thing, Villaji, that third line. Twadvenu.
Is that a ta or da?
It's a twa, TVA. Twadvenu.
The twa I got, but the letter
The is the D.
the soft
DH. The soft DH. DH, but it's twadvenu. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sammurchanabhiruditaswaramandalabihi sammurjayantam agilam bhuvanantaralam twadvenunadam vakarnya vibhotarunyah tattadrusam kamavichitta vimohamabuhu. Sammurchanabhiruditaswaramandalabihi sammurjayantam agilam bhuvanantaralam twadvenunadam upakarnya vibho tarunyah तत्रा सुतं कमपि चित्तविमोहमापुः
ता गेह कृत्य निरतास्तनय प्रसक्ताः कान्तोपसेवन पराश्च सरोरुहाक्ष्यः सर्वं विसृज्य मुरली रव मोहितास्ते कान्तार देशमयि कान्त तनो समेताः तागेह कृत्य निरतास्तनय प्रसक्ताः कान्तोपसेवन पराश्च सरोरुहाक्ष्यः सर्वं विसृज्य मुरलीरव मोहितास्ते कान्तारदेशमयि कान्ततनो समेताः
तागेह कृत्य निरतास्तनय प्रसक्ताः कान्तोपसेवन पराश्च सरोरुहाक्ष्यः सर्वं विसृज्य मुरलीरव मोहितास्ते कान्तारदेशमयि कान्ततनो समेताः तागेह कृत्य निरतास्तनय प्रसक्ताः कान्तोपसेवन पराश्च सरोरुहाक्ष्यः सर्वं विसृज्य मुरलीरव मोहितास्ते कान्तारदेशमयि कान्ततनो समेताः
दाहे गृध्य गेहगृध्य निरादस्तनय प्रसक्ताः कान्तोपसेवन पराक्ष सरोरुहाक्ष सर्वं विसृज्य मुरलीरव मोहितास्ते कान्तारदेशमयि कान्ततनो समेताः दागेह कृत्य निरादस्तनय प्रसक्ताः कान्तोपसेवन पराक्ष सरोरुहाक्ष्यः सर्वं विसृज्य मुरलीरव मोहितास्ते कान्तारते देशमयि कान्ततनो समेताः
काश्चिन in nijanga, so in and ni, kaschin nijanga hari bhushanam adhadhanaha, so put a visarga there, adhadhanaha comma, you may not have a visarga, so you can add it. Venu pranadam upakarnya kritardha bhushaha twamagata nanu tathaiva vibhushitabhyah, again visarga and comma there at the end. Next line the is goes away. Ta eva samruruchire tava lochanaya काश्चिन् निजांग परिभूषणमादधानाः वेणु प्रणादमुपकर्ण्य कृतार्धभूषाः त्वामागता ननु तथैव विभूषिताभ्यः तायेव संरुचिरे तव लोचनाय
काश्चिन्निजाङ्गपरिभूषण मादधानाः वेणुप्रणादमुपकर्ण्य कृतार्थभूषाः त्वामागदाननु तथैव विभूषिताभ्यः ता एव संरुचिरे तव लोचनाय.
That last line, it's two roos, samruruchire.
Thank you. काश्चिन्निजाङ्गपरिभूषणमादधानाः वेणुप्रणादमुपकर्ण्य कृतार्थभूषाः त्वामागदा ननु तथैव विभूषिताभ्यः ता एव संरुचिरे तव लोचनाय.
काश्चिन्निजाङ्ग परिभूषणमाददानाः वेणुप्रणादम् उपकर्ण्य कृतार्थभूषाः त्वामागदा ननु तथैव विभूषिताभ्यः ता एव रुचिरे तव लोचनाय काष्ठिन्निजाङ्ग परिभूषणमाददानाः वेणुप्रणादम् उपकर्ण्य कृतार्थभूषाः त्वामागदा ननु तथैव विभूषिताभ्यः तायेव संरुचिरे तव लोचनाय
हारं नितम्ब भुवि काचन धारयन्ती, कॉमा, काञ्चीं च कण्ठ भुवि देव समागता त्वां हारित्वम् आत्म, if you want to break it, हारित्वम् आत्म जगनस्य मुकुन्द तुभ्यं, कॉमा, व्यक्तं भभाष इव मुग्ध मुखी विशेषात् हारं नितम्ब भुवि काचन धारयन्ती काञ्चीं च कण्ठभुवि देव समागता त्वां हारित्वमात्मजगनस्य मुकुन्द तुभ्यं व्यक्तं बभाष इव मुग्धमुखी विशेषात्
हारं निदम्बभुवि काचन धारयन्ती काञ्चीं च कण्ठभुवि देव समागतां त्वां जघनस्य मुकुन्दतुभ्यं व्यक्तं पभाष इव मुग्धमुखी विशेषात् हारं निदम्बभुवि काचन धारयन्ती काञ्चीं च कण्ठभुवि देव समागतां त्वां हारित्वमात्मजघनस्य मुकुन्दतुभ्यं व्यक्तं बभाष इव मुग्धमुखी विशेषात्.
The second line, you are saying samagatam, I'm hearing. There's no im sound there, just samagata tvam.
Samagatam tvam.
No, there's no im there.
I didn't say.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Samagatam tvam.
Okay, so I was hearing an im there, so it's okay. Samagata tvam.
Where is my incoming? Maybe it is.
Samagata. At the end of that, I'm hearing a im sound when you're saying it.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Yeah.
हारं निदम्ब भुविगासन धारयन्ती काञ्चीं च कण्ठ भुवि देव समागता त्वां हारित्वमात्मजगनस्य मुकुन्ददुभ्यं व्यक्तं बभाक्ष इव मुक्त मुखी विशेषात् हारं निदम्ब भुवि काचन धारयन्ती काञ्चीं च कण्ठ भुवि देव समागता त्वां हारित्वमात्मजगनस्य मुकुन्ददुभ्यं व्यक्तं बभाक्ष इव मुक्तमुखी विशेषात्.
Let me just kind of summarize the meaning up to 5, right? And then we'll continue with the remaining. There's only 9 stanzas in this. So, like I said, this is the first of the Dashakams, right, of the 5. And this is talking about the Gopikas coming to Krishna. So, if you remember, at the end of the Vastrapahara Varnanam, Dashakam 60, when the Gopikas all prayed, the girls prayed that I want to marry Krishna. So, at the end of the Vastrapahara episode, Krishna says, I know what your desires are. And when the appropriate time comes, then you will get to meet me, right? So at this time, the time has now come. So it was on the bank. So Krishna was on the bank of Yamuna. So now Krishna, with this internal potency, with this internal energy, he's going to create an atmosphere which is going to be likable for the Gopikas, right? So it was a full moon day, full moon night, right? And the moon was shining brightly. And at that time, the weather was also pleasant. It was a cool evening on the banks of Yamuna River in the forests of Vrindavan. So at that time, Krishna first starts playing his Venunadam. So the moment we saw already in the Venunada episode, the moment Krishna starts playing the Venunadam, everything comes to a standstill. Everything freezes. We also know music can invoke emotions. So especially when Krishna is playing the Venuganam, everybody comes to a standstill. So the stones melt, right? That's what we saw in the Venunadam episode. So similarly, when he was playing the Venunadam, as that was going through with the breeze on a cool evening on a full moon night. So at that time, the Gopikas started hearing the sound of the Venunadam. So then the moment they heard it, right, each of them naturally felt inside of them that they should go and meet Krishna right now. It was as if that Krishna was calling them individually. So none of the Gopikas communicate with each other. They all feel like they are hearing it and that Venunadam is telling them to come and meet Krishna. So some of them, it talks about where, evening also they milk the cows. So some of them were milking the cows. They stopped milking the cows. Some of them were like doing something else in the kitchen. They left doing it. Others were doing some other household duties. Some were taking care of the children. Some were taking care of the husband. Some were studying, because it's all ages, right? There's no age gap here. So everybody who hears this, right, felt like they need to actually go rush towards Krishna. So they leave everything that they're doing and then they rush towards Krishna, right? They don't wait. And some of them, and it talks about in 4 and 5, that some of them were in a state which was fully dressed, because evening, no, randomly at whatever time you're hearing this, right, sound, noise, I mean music, so at that time some of them were fully dressed, so they went that way because they were already dressed well for somebody to go out. The others were not even ready to be going out, because you are at your home, your whatever clothes you're wearing, they end up rushing in that one. He talks about how one of the lady was in such a rush that she wore her necklace around her hip, and then the udiyanam, which is the waistband, she ended up wearing on the neck because she was in such a rush to get away, right? And for those who were married, the husbands tried to stop them, and then the unmarried girls, the fathers or the elder brothers and everybody tries to stop them, because they were going alone at night. They were just rushing into the night, into the forest. But none of these people, women or girls, none of them actually waited, because the internal potency of Krishna was just dragging them so much that they had to actually go there. That kind of comes until 5. So we'll go with 6. Kachit kuche punara sajjita kanchulika, comma, vyamohatah, put a F, vyamohatah paravadhu bhira lakshyamana. You cannot quite break it. So paravadhu bhira lakshyamana twamayayau nirupama pranayati bhara, put a plus, rajyabhisheka vidaye kalashi dhareva. Kachit kuche punarasajjita kanchulika vyamohatah paravadhubhira lakshyamana त्वामाययौ निरुपम प्रणयाति भार राज्याभिषेक विदये कलशीधरेव.
काचित् कुचे पुनरसज्जित कञ्चुलिका व्यामोहतः परवधूभिरलक्ष्यमाणा. How do you say that correctly?
See, that word, if you want to break it, it's paravadhubhir alakshyamana are the two different words.
Okay.
So you can either break it that way or say paravadhubhir alakshyamana.
Thank you. त्वामाययौ निरुपमप्रणयादिभार राज्याभिषेकविधये कलशीधरेव. काचित् कुचे पुनरसज्जित कञ्चुलिका व्यामोहतः परवधूभिरलक्ष्यमाणा त्वामाययौ निरुपमप्रणयादिभार राज्याभिषेकविधये कलशीधरेव.
Oh, Ravi, mute little. Ravi, you're able to hear us? You're on mute.
While he's coming on, out from mute.
He's gone.
Sorry, forgot to. I'm sorry. Kachit kuche punarasajjita kanchulika vyamohadah paravadhubhiralakshyamana twamayayau nirupama pranayadibara rajabhisheka vidaye kalasidhareva. Kachit kuche punaralajjita kanchulika vyamohadah paravadhubhiralakshyamana त्वामाययौ निरुपम प्रणयादिभार राज्याभिषेक विदये कलसीधरेव.
Go ahead, Shashirika.
Oh no, my question was, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Why only women? Why only women were attracted? Why not men? I mean, they have the same bhakti, right?
Yeah, no, but I think it is, like I said, this attraction, right? It was, first of all, in the women were men also, a lot of men follow Krishna, right? In the sense, later on, you'll see even the Gopas also. But I think this attraction, as we're going to say, the next second half of the meaning here, it was actual like love that they had. Generally men don't express as much, right? Like women, they express their love so much. Lot of the Gopas, and we saw even when we talked about the 52nd Dashakam, right? I talked about how the men started when Krishna was as each of the Gopas, right? When he was in each of the bodies, the men were going and hugging the kids a lot. So Balarama said, what is happening? These guys never used to do that. But why are the men going and hugging the children so much? Right? So he was also
Yeah,
beginning to see a pattern there as to why are they doing it, right? So it
sure.
just kind of just shows a little bit that, expression is different, right? And plus, you'll see a lot of the greatest of devotees of Krishna who are going to come later, like
Sure.
Akrura, Uddhava, Kuchela, all of these people will give their life for Krishna, right? They'll do
Yeah,
whatever they want. But this
yeah,
love that the Gopikas had is little bit like they wanted to
different.
marry Krishna, some of them,
Right, right.
right?
Okay,
So it is a
okay,
different kind of love. So at least
sure.
that's what Krishna wanted to give them an opportunity to kind of
Okay,
express their feelings,
sure.
right, in the Rasa Krida. So that's where.
Thank you.
So kind of just continuing with some of the meanings on the second half of this, right? So like we said, the gopis are, they are demigods. They're just born, so they say they're not ordinary human beings, right? So they might just like how Krishna appears as a cowherd boy, they're appearing as a cowherd woman or a cowherd girl, but they're not, right? So they're always the eternal devotees of the Lord. So even though they were what Shukra Brahmam says very nicely in Bhagavatam is, even though they are married to their husbands, their material relationship is different because they were already always thinking about Krishna, so they had already gotten themselves purified. So you can't even say that they're married women going, because they were always attached to Krishna even before this birth, right? Not just in this birth. And it says that Krishna, they did not approach you like a Paramatma. They approached you because some of them looked at you as a lover, right? And some of them looked at you as a son, because depends on the age of the gopis, because Krishna is 8 years old, right? So they all had different kind of relationships with Krishna, but they all wanted to be with Krishna. So there were some, by going, who could not go, like we saw in the Yajva Patni's example also. Some of the Yajva Patnis could not leave things and go. Similarly, some of the gopis could not go for whatever reason, because their husbands closed the door or whatever, locked the door, etc. So when that happens, they have this intense burning agony inside of them, because you really want to do something, but you are not. Somebody's stopping you from doing something. So at that time, that intense agony that builds up in you, it says that burnt away all the karmas that the Gopikas had, because they were so much desperate. They were so determined to go and meet Krishna, but they were not able to do it. She says they actually burned their karmas much faster than the Gopikas who actually went in person and met with Krishna, right? So anyway, eventually it says all of their karmic bondage, got eliminated, because they were able to get hold of Krishna. And Bhattaripat eventually says in stanza 8 here, he says, Krishna, I don't care how my relationship with you is. Like, that's the example he says. I'm thinking of you as a god right now. So I have a certain level of, when you think of somebody as a god, you have a certain level of respect towards that god, right? You kind of respect that person. He says, but Krishna, maybe that is what is holding me away from you, because I'm not able to get close enough to you because I'm thinking of you as a god. Well, the Gopikas and the others did not think of you as a god. They just absolutely just loved you, because when you're a friend or when you're in love with somebody, the relationship boundaries are very little compared to when you think of God. You feel like, oh no, I should not do something to offend the God, right? So he says, but the Gopikas don't feel any of those things. So he says, doesn't matter how I feel, Krishna, get me also to the state of liberation, right? Maybe I'm missing that love, right, which is there in bhakti. So there's a bhakti, and then there's premam, and then there's a prema bhakti, which is a combination of these two things, right? Which is what the Gopikas actually eventually get to, right, at this point. Anyway, so with this, only 9 chapters. So with this, the second comes to an end, where the Gopikas finally, each of them individually reach the banks of Yamuna, where Krishna is playing the flute. And then they all happy to see Krishna, and they also see that everybody else has also come, because they thought they were the only ones coming, but everybody else also is assembled there. So Kachit Kuche Puna. Oh, so we already did that. 7. Kashchit Grihat Kila Niretum Apara. You can break at that im. Niretum Apara Yentyaha. Put a visarga comma. Next line is goes away. Twameva Deva Hridaye Sudridham Vibhavya देहं विधूय परचित् सुख रूपमेकं कॉमा त्वामाविशन् परमिमा ननु धन्य धन्याः काश्चित् गृहात् किल निरेतुमपारयन्त्यः त्वामेव देव हृदये सुदृढं विभाव्य देहं विधूय परचित् सुखरूपमेकं त्वामाविशन् परमिमा ननु धन्य धन्याः. Just one time. Just one time, please. Yeah.
काश्चित् गृहात् किल निरेतुम् अपारयन्त्यः त्वामेव देव हृदये सुदृढं विभाव्य देहं विधूय परचित् सुखरूपमेकं त्वामाविशन् परमिमाननु धन्य धन्याः.
काचित् गृहात् किल निरोधुमवारयन्त्यः त्वामेव देव हृदये सुदृढं विभाव्य देहं विधूय परचित् सुखरूपमेकं त्वामाविशन् परमिमाननुधन्य धन्याः.
जारात्मना न परमात्मतया स्मरन्त्यो कॉमा नार्यो गताः पुट एफ गताः परमहंस गतिं क्षणेन तं त्वां प्रकाश परमात्म तनुं कथञ्चित् put a it at the end of that line katanchit comma next time there's a ich that will go away chitte bahannamritam. So I'm going to break it into 3 words. Bahannamritam ashramam ashnuviya. This is where he's saying ashramam. You know, when you think of you as a paramatma, then it is very hard to get liberated because you always have the boundary. He says, so may also, if you want to ashramam without any difficulty, if you want to get liberated, then don't think of Krishna as a paramatma. Think of it as any way you want, either as your son, as your husband, as your father, or as your friend, or as an enemy, or whatever you want, because it's much easier to build that relationship there. जारात्मना न परमात्मतया स्मरन्त्यो नार्यो गताः परमहंस गतिं क्षणेन तं त्वां प्रकाश परमात्म तनुं कथञ्चित् चित्ते वहन्नमृतम् अश्रमम् अश्नुवीय.
जारात्मना परमात्मतया स्मरन्त्यो न्यार्यो गतः परमं हंसगतिं क्षणेन तं त्वां प्रकाश परमात्मतनुं कथञ्चित् चित्ते वहन्नमृतम् अश्रमम् अश्नुवीय.
जारात्मना न परमात्मतया स्मरन्त्यो नार्यो गताः परमहंसगतिं क्षणेन तं त्वां प्रकाश परमात्म तनुं कथञ्चित् चिन्ते वहन्नमृतम् अश्रमस्नुवीय.
Abhyagatабhirabhito. You cannot quite break it. Abhyagatабhirabhito vraja sundaribihi visarga comma. Next line, the ir or r will go away. Mugdha smitardra vadanaha. Put a ih vadanah. Karunavaloki. Nisseema kanti jaladhis त्वमवेक्ष्यमानो comma विश्वैक हृदय हरमे पवनेश रोगान्. अभ्यागताभिरभितो ब्रजसुन्दरीभिः मुग्धस्मितार्द्रवदनः करुणावलोकी निस्सीमकान्तिजलधिस्त्वमवेक्ष्यमाणो विश्वैकहृद्यहरमे पवनेश रोगान्.
अभ्यागताभिरभितो व्रजसुन्दरीभिः मुक्तस्मितार्द्रवदनः करुणावलोकी निस्सीमकान्तिजलधिस्त्वमवेक्ष्यमाणो विश्वैकहृद्य हरमे पवनेश रोगान्.
अभ्यागताभिरभितो व्रजसुन्दरीभिः मुग्ध समिदार्द्रवदनः करुणावलोकी निक्षीमकान्ति जलधिस्त्वम् अवेक्ष्यमानो विश्वैकहृद्य हरमे पवनेश रोगान्.
In the second line, Ravi, Mugdha Smitardra.
Okay. Mukta Smudha. Sorry.
Shri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. सान्ध्रानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावदिभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुर्पुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.
Rajesh, I have a question.
Yeah.
If there's only 9 stanzas, is it called something else other than Dashakam?
No, yeah, Dashakam generally means 10 stanzas, right?
Yes.
And some of these, this is the only Dashakam which has got 9. Some of them have more than 10 also. So because Narayaneeyam totally has, I think, about 1036 stanzas, right, against 100 Dashakams. But it's generally called Dashakam. I don't know what is called if it is just 9. That's a little bit of an outlier, right? Generally, it's 10, so it is Dashakam. But some of them have more, some of them have less. One of them has less. So
Thank you.
thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Namaste.
Rajesh.
Rajesh ji. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.